Welcome to the Cory Lee Show, where our focus is on building leaders and transforming culture. My name is Cory Lee, and in each episode, I aspire to ignite something on the inside of you that encourages you to grow yourself and to make an impact on the world around you. Welcome to the Cory Lee Show. Hey guys, welcome back to the Cory Lee Show, and in this episode, we are going to be talking about how champions do not play down to the level of talent and around them. This is actually going to come from a chapter in my book, Champions, the Lifestyle, the Attributes, and the Choice. And so if you want to grab you a copy of that, we've got links in the show notes below, or you can go to Amazon and get you a copy of that. Actually, I wrote this book I was getting these opportunities to speak with a lot of college athletes, a lot of high school athletes, and I just really had a heart for teaching them how to be a champion, not just on the field, but off the field. And so anyway, would love for you to go out and get that book and support. I feel like it's a timely message, a great message for not just athletes in general, but men and women who want to be good at what they do and great at who they are. And I know that's who you are that's listening to this podcast. And so today we're talking about how champions do not play down to the level of talent around them. And I want to kick it off with this quote I found by Ralph Marston. He said, "Excellence is not a skill. It's an attitude." It is an attitude. One of my very first jobs out of college, I was working at a physical therapy clinic in Jackson, Mississippi, and I'd become really good friends with the owner of this clinic, and you know how it becomes time. I'd been working there, I guess, for about 3 years, and it came time for my yearly performance review. And I know if you work at a job or if you're a leader and you do these performance reviews, it's not, I guess for a worker, you kind of anticipate it because that's where you're going to get your raise from, I guess. But I guess that's what my mom was thinking. And so he brought me in. Again, this is a good friend of mine. He's the owner of the clinic. And at that time, our performance review is based on a 4-point scale. So a 4 was above average, 3 you average, 2 below average, and 1, you know what? You probably need to find something else to do with your life right there. And so when I got my feedback from this performance review, the man rated me a 3 on everything. I was like, I know this guy. I know he didn't just call me the A word. The A word? Average. That word to me, and the word mediocre almost make me want to vomit. It makes me almost want to vomit just saying the things, right? I was like, I was embarrassed. I was like, you know what? I'm going to show this man average. I'm going to show him just how average I am. I'm going to turn me in a 6-month notice. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn in a 6-month notice. And I'm moving, me and my wife, we moving to Phoenix, Arizona. And that's exactly what we did. I turned in a 6-month notice, and 6 months later we moved to Phoenix, Arizona. And as I reflected on that little performance review, it actually turned into a life-defining moment for me. So years later, I was speaking with the owner of that clinic. He's still a good friend of mine. He listens to the podcast, named Tanny. Just give Tanny a shout out. But he's still one of my best friends to this day. And he confided in me that he was just going through there marking stuff, just to get the review done. It didn't really even put any real thought into what he was writing. But even so, his nonchalant, approach, it created this powerful lesson for me, because although he may not have been the most intentional about his action, it brought tremendous awareness for me. See, looking at that little tally of my career to that point, I realized that in my area of giftedness, I was just showing up. In my area of giftedness, I was just coming to work. I was just showing up. And because I was naturally good at that in certain areas, I could show up and people would still pat you on the back. They'll say, "Good job, that a boys," and all of that. And I had to realize that in my area of giftedness that I could just show up, or I had to be intentional, and I could be very intentional about growing. And in our area of giftedness, sometimes we can just show up and get those pats on the back. I call that compromise. Compromise is when we just don't put any effort into cultivating the talent that we have. We don't put any effort into bringing all the passion and all the energy we can. We just show up and people will still give you the compliments because it is an area of giftedness. And so that performance review was actually a big learning lesson for me. Steve Prefontaine, he's a runner. He said, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. How about that? See, our gifts are just that. They are gifts, and we are to steward well those abilities and those talents that we've been given freely. Natural talent, it's one of life's greatest gifts, but simply relying on undeveloped or that raw talent, if you will, it will cause you and me to coast all the way to mediocrity. Talent is simply a head start, and the advantage that it gives in the short term, if we give proper attention to it, if we don't give proper attention to it, we will soon be bypassed by somebody who will put time, effort, and intentionality into cultivating that. In sports, I think we see this manifest from time to time. See, there are those individuals who start out with superior natural ability and they choose not to develop, and then someone surpasses them who's in the gym all the time, who's putting in the work on the field, and they soon bypass them. That initial advantage that they had was soon bypassed because they chose not to put in the time and the effort and the intentionality. See, eventually those that start behind, as they put that effort in, they will bypass the ones with the natural raw talent. Talent is just a head start. Here's the other thing I want us to realize in this is that good is the enemy of great, and settling can be a habit. My senior year in high school, our football team, I'll tell you, was good. We were regarded as one of the best teams in the state of Mississippi, and one of the things that at that time, the state newspaper would put out their rankings, and they had this thing on there where you could see how many points the other teams had scored and how many points were given up. And I always liked looking at that because our team was the number one rated small school in the state of Mississippi. We scored more points than any other team in the state of Mississippi, and we gave up the fewest amount of points than any other team in the entire state of Mississippi. But late in the regular season, we were playing against the division. It was a team that they would consider us rivals, I guess. But based on the last couple of seasons, it was somebody that we should beat pretty easily. We'd already won the division. We had secured the number one seed in the playoffs. And honestly, the game felt more like a formality than anything else. But whenever it came to halftime, we were winning, but it was very small margin. Like we were barely winning. And I'm telling you, our coach, he was not happy. Coach D, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know I've talked about Coach D a little bit. He wasn't happy. He recognized that we were simply going through the motions and relying on reputation. We thought that our past performance would be good enough. He recognized our assumptions that the successes of yesterday would be, we thought that our assumptions of our past wins would be good enough to coast for today. He saw this, and he made us fully aware of our half-hearted performance at halftime. Now, I know some of you, as you listening to me here, you may be arguing, well, I mean, the game didn't really matter. Maybe we needed to save ourselves for the playoffs. You could come up with all those excuses. But Coach D, see, he had a higher purpose for holding us accountable to our abilities. He knew that these teenage young boys were playing a game, but they would soon be men contributing to society. He knew that these young men would be faced with the option to partner with settling for good enough at some other point in life. He knew that once that door of compromise has been cracked open, then it'd be much easier to walk right on through. And he did not want that to start. And that's what starts something right there. It's supposed to be, that right there was a powerful lesson for me. Is like, I did not want that to be definitely didn't want that to be a way of life. But once you crack that door, quitting becomes easy. Quitting that first time, you think about it, you wrestle with it. But once you crack that door, it becomes so much easier to walk on through. Jim Collins, he wrote a book called Good to Great. It talks about how it's a phenomenal book. One of the first business books I read, got some great content. He basically did a study on what caused some companies to move from good to great and then what caused other ones to kind of falter. But he said good is the enemy of great. And that is one of the key reasons why we have so little that become great. We don't have great schools, principally because we have good schools. We don't have great government, principally because we have good government, and few people attain great lives, in large part because it's just so easy to settle for a good life. How about that? See, the majority choose to settle, but you are a champion. Champions choose to rise above. Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Cory Lee Show. Y'all, I am on a mission to build leaders and to transform culture. So if you're looking for a speaker who speaks directly to the heart, a mentor to come alongside you and your team, or if you're in a position where you're looking for a personal coach who embraces where you are and also believes in who you could become, then I would be honored to walk this path with you. Simply reach out to me on my email at cory@coryleeleadership.com. Look, let's make your vision a reality. Contact me and together we'll navigate the path from aspiration to achievement. Your transformation, it starts now. The majority are influenced by the culture around them. Champions look to influence the culture. True champions do not play down to the level of talent they are playing against. If anything, they stimulate the competition to reach up to their level. I once had a gentleman share a metaphor with me that explains this rather simple yet profound thought. I think I may have said it on this podcast a couple of times, but think about this. Let's say if you've got a pot of boiling hot water, and let's say you've got an egg, a carrot, and a coffee bean. And let's say you take that egg and you were to put it into the boiling pot of hot water, all right? So think about it. When that egg goes in there, on the inside, is it hard or soft? Well, it's soft, right? But what happens to it whenever it goes into the water? Once that goes into the water, what happens to the inside? It becomes hard, right? It went in soft, it went into the environment, and it comes out hard. Think about the carrot. The carrot, it's hard, but if you take that carrot and you put it into the boiling hot water, you put it into the environment influences it, and it becomes soft. It goes in hard, it comes out soft. But if you think about that coffee bean, if you were to take that coffee bean and you were to place it into that boiling pot of hot water, what happens to the water? It becomes coffee, right? It darkens the water. It influences the water. The carrot and the egg, they were influenced by the environment. The coffee bean influenced its environment. That's what champions do. They influence the environment. I kind of like to liken it to a thermostat and a thermometer. You think about a thermometer, it can measure change, but a thermometer, it can measure temperature, but it can't create any change. Thermostat, on the other hand, it can measure, it can monitor, but it can also create change. If I got that thermostat over there set at 70 and the temperature goes up too high, well, that unit's going to kick on and the AC is going to come on. It's going to create a change in the atmosphere. You are a champion. That's what champions do. We want to maximize our potential. And I came across this thing on social media the other day. A guy asked the question. He said, do you know why so many people never reach their full potential? Now, honestly, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I really don't. But this one, when I came across it, it really piqued my interest. But he said, the reason why people never reach their full potential is that they're unwilling to pay the next price. And man, I love that. That resonated so much with me. I think that is a truth that is essential for champions to internalize and act upon. Everything worthwhile is uphill, and y'all, it is uphill all the way. However you choose to define success, it will take an uphill climb. Most people have uphill dreams, but they have downhill habits. In our ascent uphill, we've got to make sacrifices. We've got to give up something of a lesser value in order to gain something of a greater value. See, there is no success without some kind of sacrifice being made. Any seeming success built on shortcuts instead of sacrifices is merely an illusion, like smoke, right? It'll dissipate in time. When I knew that the time had come to, I was working at a clinic, but whenever I knew that time had come to step out and open up our own business, I had to make a tough decision. I knew I would be sacrificing a consistent high-paying job with great benefits and a known work schedule for a lot of uncertainty and just a chance for opportunity. It was a sacrifice. It was a sacrifice that I was willing to make and a price that I was willing to pay. What the leader in that video was saying is that we make the sacrifice, but as things go well, we tend to settle, right? Because in the beginning, there's not too much at risk. But as we've continued to build and build and build, now we've got all that stuff that we've built that's at risk. And that's why I'm saying people do not reach their full potential because they're unwilling to pay that next price. Man, that is so good. I don't know if any of you guys are into Rocky, but in Rocky 3, Rocky's trainer gives a great dose of reality that his trainer gives him. He says he's seeing that he gives him this dose of reality that the desired outcome of the performance, the actual degree of preparation in Rocky's life, they were out of sync, right? So Rocky, he was the champion. He is living the lifestyle of a perceived champion. He had the cars and the nice stuff and the apparel and all that stuff. And his trainer, though, was telling him that he's about to face a killer. He said, "You about to face a killer, Rocky." And that Rocky, you ain't ready. He said, "You ain't ready for this particular fight." But Rocky, he doesn't seem to take what he's hearing seriously until the trainer makes it clear to him. This is what he says. He says, 3 years ago, you were supernatural. You was hard. You was nasty. And you had this iron cast jaw. But then the worst thing happened to you that could happen to any fighter. You got civilized. Ooh, you got civilized. See, good is the enemy of great. Because it's the lure and the temptation to settle for good enough. Settling for what is or likely will be instead of pushing to see what's possible. As a concept, in general, it's good. Good is what's initially comfortable mixed with some limitation. Great is what's initially uncomfortable mixed with endless possibilities. I want to say this before I wrap this podcast up. There is another barrier that keeps champions from fulfilling their potential, and it's this aspect of the season of waiting. There's seasons of waiting. And what I mean by that is there are these seasons of work that's being done, that's being put in, yet it seemingly goes unrecognized. It's knowing that you are destined to do something great, but there's no fruit or even a hint of evidence suggesting that it will ever become a reality. This frustrating season causes many champions to simply lay down the calling on their lives. But there's a proverb that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. Y'all, the dream on the inside, the desire that burns deep, can be quenched if the heart becomes too sick during the waiting period. But very importantly, the proverb does not end with the idea of endless, fruitless waiting. See, there's a second line in the verse, and it's often translated to something along the lines of, when the desire is fulfilled, it is a tree of life. The actual Hebrew does not appear to directly use the term when in this verse. Translators did choose the word when over if at the beginning of the Proverbs' second portion, but when the desire is fulfilled is very different from if the desire is fulfilled. And y'all, that's good news. That's good news for anyone who finds himself waiting on the outcomes of all their choices. Unfortunately, the waiting season is when a lot of the would-be champions give up and walk away because it's hard, it's difficult, and it's uncertain. And I want to challenge you that it's not if, it is when, if you'll stick with it. Don't allow the seasons of waiting, the blind spots between the input and the payoff, to rob you of destiny fulfilled. As I wrap this podcast up, I want to give you this poem that I wrote, and it's based on this topic. And I think I got this from Ecclesiastes and just kind of modified it. But this is the poem. There's a yearning buried deep within the heart. Its call is to step into greatness. The sound of its voice is deep and strong, yet so distant. Like a magnet that's being drawn to higher heights. There's a pull, a tug, and a nudge. But to where exactly, you're not quite sure. There's a knowing that you were made to be out front, to be in the spotlight, yet you feel so hidden. It's a season of waiting. Make good use of this season. Don't despise this season. To despise it is to waste it. Do not rush this season. To rush it is to leave yourself underdeveloped for the moment when your number is called. Embrace it. This season offers insights into where, what, and in whom your trust is placed. Strengths to be developed, weaknesses in character that need to be dealt with. This season offers opportunity. The opportunity to bridge the gap between current ability and potential ability. Where you are going, strengths must be strengthened, talent must be improved, character must be rock solid. Skills, talents, and abilities can get you an invite, but character is what keeps the invitations coming. Ultimately, where, what, and in whom you place your trust. This is the defining decision of this season. Many options will appear before you. Money, influence, a large network of people, your own ability to make things happen, the government, a business or an organization, certain relationships, the Lord, and even many more. This decision is foundational. See, a foundation is what all the rest will be built upon. Consider well the options before you. How solid is that foundation? Is it fickle? Does it change with the seasons? Will it need constant repair? Is it dependable, durable, and unshakable? Make good use of this season. If taken lightly, it can set you back or keep you from where you are. Taken intentionally, it can pull you up to where you are destined to be. You are no accident. Your life has a purpose. The season of waiting is time for discovery. What are you made of and what are you made for? The season of waiting is time for building and becoming. To become the type of person that's built from the inside out, not outside in. Inside out, develop strength to stand under the weight of destiny. Embrace the season. Embrace the moment. And when your moment comes and when your moment finds you prepared, do not apologize for the harvest you reap in the end. If this moment finds you unprepared, do not make excuses. Do not cast blame. Do not point the finger, and above all, do not give up. Learn the lessons offered from this season. Pull yourself up. Take full responsibility and give it another go. Another moment is just around the corner. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Psalm 27:14. Hey, hope this podcast has added value to you. I hope, if it has, I would really love to hear from you. I'd love to hear some feedback, some comments. Make sure you comment below. Also, make sure you like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with any of the latest episodes of the Cory Lee Show. And again, this episode is an excerpt from my book, Champion. And if you'd love to get that, you can go to Amazon. You can go to my website. It'll be in the show notes below. Hope you guys have a great day, and God bless.
3, 2, 1.
Thanks for joining me today. I hope I have added value to you. And if you have found value in this episode, let me know. Drop a comment and make sure you share with a friend or family member. See you next episode.